Hey, let me tell you about a pattern I've seen. Let me see if I can link these things together into a common thread. First, a blog entry by Dominic Cummings. He's a conservative political guru in the United Kingdom, famous for working with Boris Johnson. Here's what he wrote, and it immediately rang true to me. He was talking about a lot of things, including the daily invasion of the UK by fake refugees on little boats coming across from France over the English Channel, and how both the current Labour government and the previous Conservative government both said they wanted to stop the migrant boats, but both of them continued to agree to be bound by the European Convention on Human Rights. It's a left-wing European law as opposed to British law. It would be like a Canadian prime minister saying, I'd really like to close the Roxham Road border crossing, but the United Nations says I can't. It was a very interesting blog post, but it was this quote that grabbed me on a different but related subject, and I've just been thinking about it ever since. He says, if you talk to senior people in places like the United Arab Emirates, they tell you that big shots in that region now tell each other, don't send your kids to be educated in Britain. They'll come back radical Islamist nut jobs. That sounds like maybe he's joking, but I don't think he is at all. In the United Arab Emirates, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, there are synagogues even. There are Jews. And I'm talking with black hats and beards. They're very identifiable Orthodox Jews. I met a rabbi in the UAE who said he faces less abuse there than he does in New York City. They don't allow the radicalization in the UAE. Here's their foreign minister almost a decade ago.
There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
You might remember when we had a Rebel News fact-finding trip to Israel and then the UAE to check out the Abraham Accords. We went to Abu Dhabi and we saw where the government, the Muslim government, built a mosque, a church, and a synagogue right next to each other in an impressive facility. Imagine that, a Muslim country paying for and building a Jewish synagogue and a Christian church, and they're actually used. There's even a Holocaust museum in the UAE. Compare that to the West. There are parts of London and New York, and I dare say parts of Mississauga and Scarborough, where if you simply dressed like an Orthodox Jew and walked through the streets, you'd be abused verbally and possibly physically too. I think for sure you would. Since I mentioned Dominic Cummings, let me read a bit more from his blog. He was once Boris Johnson's right-hand man, so there's some weight to his words. I'm just going to read a minute's worth. He said, our regime has spent 30 years, A, destroying border control and sane immigration, including the Home Office's jihad against the highest skilled, whom they truly loathe, discussing and try to repel with stupid fees, etc., and B, actively prioritizing people from the most barbaric places on earth, hence immigration from the tribal areas most responsible for the grooming and rape gangs keep rising, and C, funding the spread of those barbaric ideas and defending the organizations spreading them with human rights laws designed to stop the return of totalitarianism in Europe. In parallel, they've started propaganda operations with the old media to spread the meme that our real danger is the far right code for white people. As Tories and Labour have continued their deranged trajectory, they have provoked exactly the reactions they most feared, including the spreading meme that our regime itself has become our enemy and the growing politicization of white English nationalism. That's quite an earful, but wow. I mean, it's almost like everything is accelerated in the UK if people like Dominic Cummings are talking this way. It's what Tommy Robinson has been talking about for a decade, by the way. mass immigration, terrorism, political Islam that does not assimilate. It's one of the reasons they've tried to shut Tommy Robinson up, but now his ideas have spread. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. Nigel Farage is campaigning for a full immigration freeze. He's talking about large deportations. There is a renewed interest in the massive rape gangs that have been targeting white girls by primarily Pakistani Muslim men. Sorry, it's just a fact, but until recently, very few people would say it out loud.
There have been multiple cases now, and it's beyond any level of doubt that there's a disproportionate number of British Muslims involved in grooming gangs against underage white girls. And to say that is to report on the facts. It's not to be racist. And if we're backing away from this conversation, then all we're doing is leaving the ground far open. In what is a legitimate issue that requires addressing, we're leaving the ground for the populace to hijack that legitimate issue and make it their own for their own nefarious purposes.
That's Majid Nawaz, a British Pakistani journalist and critic. That's the only reason he could say it, because no one would accuse him of being anti-Pakistani and Muslim. He's both of those things. Anyways, many more people are talking about these things now in the UK, but boy, that country is so far gone. I really don't know if the place can be saved. I hope so. It might be too late, but polls show that Nigel Farage would win a majority government if the election were to happen today. Isn't that something about the United Arab Emirates, though? They think the Muslims of the UK are too anti-Semitic. I think Saudi Arabia has the same view. You know, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance once joked that the first Muslim nation with a nuclear bomb would be the UK. Of course, Pakistan already has one, but the joke still works. But look, enough about overseas. Look at Canada. Here's Dave Portnoy, the American journalist and sports enthusiast and entrepreneur. He's got Barstool Sports. One of his hobbies or business lines is to review pizzas. He reviews hundreds of pizzas. It's quite something. He always goes to the pizza shop in person, so it's fresh out of the oven. He's a pretty good reviewer, by the way. I think he's got good taste. And he's made an app that has a map of every pizza shop he's ever been to, with his score and with the public score and a video of his review. It's actually a really fun app, and it's a huge deal in the pizza world to be reviewed by Dave Portnoy. So he comes up to Toronto, and he'll hit 5 or 10 pizza places in a day. Bam, 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 one after the other, just to bank the videos. Because obviously it's, he does other things in life besides review pizza. So he was here in Toronto, about to do his thing. And remember, this guy is in the biggest, brashest, rudest cities in America all the time. He's from Philly, and I pick up from him that they swear a lot. He hangs out in New York, Chicago, New Jersey. People come up to him. People interrupt him. People ask him for a slice. He offers people a slice. Half the fun is watching people interact with Dave Portnoy and surprise him. But I've never seen this happen before, no matter where he's been. Take a look.
So he's calling this old school terrazza. One bite, everybody knows the rules. We didn't get here the first time. Place is very cool on the inside. We got Frankie Lazzani's whole story, which almost seemed borderline not believable. Like, see, there we go. There we go. What are you guys fucking laughing about?
Terrible.
Exactly. So here we go. One bite, everybody knows the rules. We won't let that get into, what is that Toronto hospitality there?
F the Jews. That's Toronto now. And the giggling from the young men around him, because it's so funny, right? Portnoy keeps going, doing his thing, but not before remarking on Canadian hospitality. When did that start to happen? Well, it's been building for a while, but on October 7th, there was a starter pistol, and throughout the West, Islamic extremists and leftist fellow travelers, Antifa and the like, decided to see what they could get away with, what they could make the new normal. Now, in places like Calgary and Edmonton, actually, things were tamped down pretty quickly when the University of Calgary had an illegal, trespassing, anti-Semitic encampment on their university, put up largely by non-students. It was taken down by police the very next day. That's Calgary. But in Toronto and Montreal, the racist encampments lasted weeks or months. Weekly anti-Semitic marches. Attacks and harassment against Jewish shops, Jewish people, Jewish homes. Constant denunciations of Jews, first on the streets and in the universities, now in other institutions. It's normal now, normalized completely. And nobody who is in charge, no one who's a leader, does anything about it. Not the mayor, not the police chief, not the premier, not the prime minister, not much of the media. Everyone who's supposed to say something says nothing. Are you surprised that the establishment is letting you down again? I'm not surprised at them. Look at this from Union Station. That's the biggest train station in Toronto. Take a look.
Can't you hear?
Just taking over the place, just having a little political rally right there in the subway in rush hour. They take over the streets, city blocks. There's 100 mosques in the Toronto area, but they'll just shut down a city street to pray. They took over the Jewish march a couple of weeks ago, and police acted as their bodyguards. 56,000 Jews marched, 100 Hamas protesters. If it was left to Mother Nature, the Hamas side would have been, shall we say, shepherded away pretty quickly. But the police protected them, because that's normal now. What does that have to do with Dave Portnoy? What does it have to do with any of the things I've been talking about? Well, we used to be a high-trust society in Canada. We used to have an understanding of what it meant to be Canadian. And in the past 18 months, the Hamas side has moved the Overton window so much. What if someone had shouted out the N-word at Dave Portnoy instead of the J word? It would have been shocking. I'm not sure if those young men in the background would have been giggling, because there is still a social shame, a stigma attached to such racism. It just isn't acceptable in public. Maybe you whisper it to your friends, but no one would say it in public. It's not a matter of the law. It's actually not unlawful to say the N-word or F the Jews. It's not illegal. But it's so socially unacceptable, no one would do it unless perhaps they were hiding their face. But to say F the Jews or even death to the Jews, it's happened so much without any meaningful social consequences that's what Canada is now. You don't see a lot of people saying that's not what Canada is, because no, there's only so many times you can call it an anomaly before, no, that's not an anomaly. That's just how it is.